Thank you very much for that introduction, Gordon, and thanks to the Research Committee and Maria for inviting me and organizing this. I'm going to talk to you today about a project that's been going on for some time called the Cotton Nero A.X project. I'm going to introduce the project and essentially tell you where we're at in it. Talk a little bit about the project methodology, and then show a little bit of where the current research is. So Cotton Nero A.X needs some definition at first glance. Obviously, an antiquary named Cotton had a library that was enormously large, that he gave as a bequest to the Crown. It formed the basis of the British Library, along with the Royal Library. And in his own library, and therefore the first catalogs show it this way, Cotton had his medieval manuscripts arranged in bookshelves that had busts of the Roman emperors on them. So Cotton Nero A.X is the manuscript that was under the Emperor Nero on the top shelf, 10th from the left probably. It's an illustrated manuscript from the 14th century. It's the only copy that we have of 4 very important Middle English poems, of which the most famous is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, but the elegy Pearl is also very famous, and the 2 others, Cleanness and Patience, are cropping up on the radar much more frequently these days. There was a facsimile of the manuscript published by the Early English Text Society in black and white under the direction of Sir Israel Gollancz in 1912, and by and large that's the access that folks have to that manuscript now. The casual visitor to the manuscript reading room at the British Library is put off with the facsimile, I guess would be the way to describe it. In fact, only the very rare expert scholar gets to see the manuscript. There are standard editions of the poems. They are all from the mid-20th century and include from 1953 Gordon's edition of Pearl. Tolkien and Gordon's edition of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight actually dates from 1925, but was revised by Norman Davis in 1966, and then J.J. Anderson edited the 2 other poems in the 70s, and those are also for inspection should anyone care. The Cotton Nero A.X project is on the web at gowan-ms.ca if you want to take a look at the website. I'll be showing the website a little bit later on, and because of my kind of fumbling approach to technology, I don't dare leap between a PowerPoint and a website, so I'm going to do the PowerPoint first, then what I want to show from the website, and then something that I want to show you on Photoshop. So the Cotton Nero A.X project is based, first of all, on the permission that we received early in the project to have new photographs taken of the manuscript. And based on those photographs and on in-person inspection of the manuscript, we have created highly detailed and accurate transcriptions of the manuscript and its poems. And we're working towards new critical editions of the poems, which will have textual apparatus and commentary. And our website is being expanded with a bibliography and text that I will specify as I go along. So the project has been underway since 1998. In January of that year, I conducted the first discussions of it with Andrew Prescott, then manuscript librarian at the British Library. and work began that summer. Shirk has funded the project since 2001 with a massive interruption in the middle of that, and the project has during that time employed quite a few students. The early models for what we were planning to do in the project were my own edition of Geoffrey Chaucer's Book of the Duchess, published in 1997, and Kevin Kiernan's Electronic Beowulf, which I believe is 2000. I wish I'd put the date. Technology has obviously progressed quite a bit since 1998, and so the current technologies that we're looking at, although they're not quite adoptable per se in some cases, are additions by Bernard Muir of two Old English manuscripts, the Exeter Book and Bodleian Library manuscript Junius 11. For the bibliography, there's now very good bibliographical website software, and RefBase is the one that we're looking at. Web publishing, HTML, I don't know, I put that in there. And the printed book actually has joined the things that we're thinking about for the project. We originally thought do it all in digital form, but there are good arguments. So thank you to our sponsors. In decreasing order of generosity, Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada are pretty good to us. Our own university's pretty good to us. I got a leave for a Killam when they still did that. Cut rate on the photographs, not very much. We still had to pay for them. They're very encouraging verbally. Current team, in terms of faculty members, myself, Dr. Kenna Olson, a former PhD student from this department, now an assistant prof, and not wanting to jinx anything, soon an associate prof at Mount Royal University, Jenna Stuk at MRU and U of C, and Alex Gillespie at U of T. Very prestigious editorial advisory board who have done nothing so far. These are the students who are currently working on the project, three of whom are here today: Terry, Jackie, and Stephanie. What our current publication plans are that online will be the digital images and our highly detailed transcription of the manuscript, plus bibliography, and I'll get into more detail about both of those things a little bit later in the slideshow. In print, we now plan will appear the critical editions of the four poems, and we're currently directing all our effort at producing samples of those critical editions to interview publishers about. So the digital imaging is high-res color imaging. It's done not through photographic film, obviously, but it's direct to digital. The images are really great. I'll show them to you in a little while. They were done in the British Library by British Library staff in 2007, and we only recently got through all the back and forth over the contract, and now are licensed to display them on the web at their full resolution and so on. So all 180 images will at some time in the near future be available on the web for scholars and students to consult. There's a sample. Sorry, the lighting is so bad. Sorry, the projector is so bad. Sorry. There's a little bit of zoom in on that. There's a text page. The reason I'm skipping past these so quickly is that I'm going to show in Photoshop a little bit later on the actual capacity of these images. So that's a text page. The transcription, transcribing from a manuscript sometimes seems like it would be a really simple thing, but we're attempting a detail of transcription that has, I'm tempted to say never, but let me say rarely, just in case I've neglected something. Oh, actually, I do know some people who are working at this level of detail. Level of detail that's rarely been attempted, namely a graphitic level of detail. I think there's a slide in a minute that says precisely what that is, based on the Text Encoding Initiative implementation of XML for the digital humanities students in the class, and in my class, sorry, in the seminar today, and they'll be displayed using special fonts. There's a particularly nice font for representing medieval manuscripts that was developed by Peter Baker at the University of Virginia, called Junicode, a play on the Junius manuscript that was mentioned earlier, and Unicode, which is a modern standard that is supposed to allow the representation of all writing systems in the world, and is gradually coming to be able to do that. So the scribe of the manuscript has a writing system that's only about half, if you look at all the glyphs or individual graphic symbols, only about half letters of the alphabet. So there are minuscules and majuscules, those are alphabetic characters, and then there are also a variety of abbreviations, and we distinguish between abbreviations and word symbols, which are collections of strokes that represent an entire word. And then there are junctures, which are also called ligatures, but letters that are written together as a unit. So we're developing a way of representing all of those things. The fundamental transcription is in XML, which is an abbreviation for Extensible Markup Language. It allows various kinds of information modeling, but in the case of this project, what it particularly allows is for us to develop a unique method of transcribing each of those separate glyphs. It also gives us facilities for describing graphic layout and the general form of the manuscript. So the process, and Steph and Jackie know this well, is to, like letter by letter, go through each page of the manuscript and give it its appropriate transcription equivalent, according to a transcription scheme that has kind of evolved as the project has been involved, and was published in what we think is its close to final form this past year. I'll be showing more of that as well. So the bibliography is the other major component beyond the pictures and the transcription that will be up on the web. It's a bibliography of books and articles and dissertations and so on the manuscript, or on the 4 poems in the manuscript, and it succeeds book form published bibliographies. These poems are enormously interesting to scholars, and so there are huge numbers of books and articles published, especially on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, but also on Pearl and Catching Up Fast, Cleanness, and finally Patience. So Andrew, Malcolm Andrew, published in 1983, I think, a bibliography of works up to 1977. The Editio Princeps of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight was 1839. It was unknown to scholarship basically before then, except for a stray reference in a history of English literature. But there's been a kind of exponential growth in scholarship, so that Blanche, who published his bibliography, covered the 15 years that he covers, in a book about the size of the Andrew bibliography. So we have recently published in PDF on the website a hand list of these items covering another 15-year period, and are collecting entries for 2009 and after. And Terry as well as Elias have been involved in that work. We realize as we do this that we're incurring a commitment to sustain these online bibliographies. Come on, click, there we go. So these are the things that are covered. These are the things that are not covered. This is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight opera. It's not in our bibliography. It'll be an online searchable database. We hope eventually to be able to incorporate the items from the earlier bibliographies. We also have a webliography. There's actually less and less of value that's just on the web, but there are a few things that don't appear in bibliographical resources and so on. So we occasionally do a sweep of the web to find out what's out there in terms of resources that are valuable. There's a lot of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight fandom around in the world, both among scholars and among average members of the public. And so there are a lot of websites, and very few of them are worth our listing, but we list the ones that are worth our listing, and eventually they'll go into the bibliography as well. Some of the items have already joined the bibliography. So overview of current progress. The digital imaging obviously done already by the British Library. By the way, we had no control over that process, including no say-so over how they were going to do it, when they were going to do it, camera, resolution, even photographic method. We had all kinds of ideas about how they could have done it better. And they also didn't tell us that they'd done it until about a year and a half after the photography was done. So very mysterious. It was partly, I think, turnover in the manuscripts department, partly the failure of the imaging part of the library to communicate with manuscripts, and partly sheer British cussedness. We finished the detailed transcription of the manuscript a while ago. It's not really accurate to say like this slide that it's complete, because it has to be done and redone. We refine our transcription scheme with the new photographs. We have one more way of checking our transcription of the manuscript, and actually the new photographs are in many cases much clearer than the view of the manuscript that you get in the British Library in person, looking at it with the biggest magnifying glass they will let you hold close to it. So we are discovering new things now that we've got the images, and essentially have to go through the whole manuscript again. In terms of the textual editions, cleanness is completed. Kenna Olson did an edition of cleanness as her doctoral dissertation. 80% of the way through Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Stephanie Badine is working on the other 20%.
I'm done. It's editing right now.
Yeah, you're done the transcription and doing a kind of a trial edition for an honors thesis. I'm afraid I have to tell you that your work won't, without further revision, make it into the final edition, but it will be helpful, and we will consider it. Pearl is about halfway done in terms of textual edition. I'm doing that in collaboration with Jenna Stuck. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, I've probably done 3/5 of, say, and other scholars have contributed to that. In terms of annotations, kind of similar rates of progress. You'll notice that the fourth poem, Patience, isn't included in these lists. Elias Fassi at MRU is working on an honors thesis involving that poem, which again will be a trial edition and eventually may result in an edition for the project that Ken Olson will probably take on. In terms of commentary, textual notes are obviously notes about alterations to the text, manuscript readings, and so on. Commentary is more cultural or contextual, that kind of thing. It's again completed for cleanness. A bunch more to do on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and Pearl, I think 20% is a ballpark figure. The line 432 sticks in my mind as where we are on Pearl. The bibliography is up as a hand list on the web in PDF, as I said before, and it's intended to be an annotated bibliography, and writing of abstracts of the books and articles is well underway. Former MA students in the Department of English here, Lars Hedlund and Tamara Haddad, did a bunch of that work for the project. Terry Lyons is working, or going to be working on the bibliography, and I've done some work on that as well. Sadly, we don't at this point have draft annotations in shape to put up on the web in our delivery system. This is really a non sequitur, but it's a slide that in fact makes a transition to the other kind of programs that I'm going to be showing this on, the web browser and the Photoshop. None of this work would be worthwhile if what we were merely doing was mounting on the web these nice photographs that the British Library had done, and giving editions of the poems that were more or less the same as what all the other scholars had found in the manuscript up to this point. We are, in fact, discovering new knowledge in the course of this work, which you might think is surprising, given that for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the scholarly editing of the poem dates back to 1839. For the other three poems to 1864. So people have been chewing away at what the manuscript says in these four cases for well over 100 years. How can we come up with anything new? There are two reasons. One, we've got better access to the manuscript itself than many of the scholars who have actually done critical editions up to this time have had. As I mentioned, Sir Israel Gollins directed the preparation of a photographic facsimile in 1912 using the technology that was available at that time. Since that time, it's been very difficult to get access to the manuscript itself, particularly for extended periods. And I can't count the editions that either are entirely based on that facsimile or are based on that facsimile with, the editor will say, examination of difficult readings in the manuscript itself, which means that they had 2 hours with the manuscript and they looked at all the readings that they thought were problematic. That, in our view, is not enough access, and in fact we've had many more hours than that through the generosity of the British Library, had the opportunity, it turns out for the last time, to look at some of the difficulty readings using ultraviolet light, which we've now been told is not going to be allowed for that manuscript ever again. And we have these great photographs. So in terms of the actual transcription of the manuscript, what each glyph or graphic sign is, row by row, as you go down a line of writing, we're finding places where everybody has it wrong. And the reason everybody has it wrong is like the second reason all the editions have been the same and we're discovering new knowledge, which I have been known to describe as the duck rabbit effect. I don't know if you know about the duck rabbit. The duck rabbit is a figure that shows up in psychology introductory textbooks and in philosophy text, Wittgenstein used the duck rabbit. The duck rabbit is a drawing that looks from one point of view like a duck, and if you see it a different way, like a rabbit. Pretty much all Wittgenstein was doing with it was saying you can't see it as both. You can either see it as a duck or a rabbit. The psychologists have done a number of other things, and the reason that I attach it to this kind of circumstance is that there was a very interesting study that was done at a little booth at the gates to the Zurich Zoo, where psychologists asked children who were visiting the zoo what the duck rabbit figure was. And they asked them at 2 times of the year, just before Easter and in the fall. And a majority of them just before Easter saw a rabbit, and a majority of them in the fall saw a duck. And my point is that you see what you're expecting to see. And the fact is that since 1839, everyone who has gone to the manuscript has gone to the manuscript having already read the poem, often studied the poem for years in a printed edition. And so they see what they've been trained to see when they look at the manuscript itself. In some cases, their edition actually, this is true of Morris, who published an edition in 1864 of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight for Early English Text Society. In some cases, their work of editing was to check the previously published edition against the manuscript, which gives you a double cause for failure in seeing what's in the actual manuscript. Because obviously, you look at the edition page first, and then you look at the manuscript page and say, is it that? And then you go, yes, yeah, it is, yes, all the way through. And you're particularly delighted if you find an error, but you're unlikely to find an error under those circumstances. So transcription is actually a surprisingly big category of places where we find things that are different than people have understood they are. And all kinds of kind of interesting things built on top of mistranscriptions. Kind of critical literary studies that focus on what a particular word means in context. And it's not that word at all. There are entries in the multi-volume Middle English Dictionary where the only citation is for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and the word is a mistranscription of a word that exists elsewhere in the Middle English Dictionary and makes abundant sense in context. U and N confusions, because the two letters are written exactly the same way as two minims, that is, two individual strokes, not joined together at the top or the bottom. U and N confusions are a big category in transcription errors. Also, we are finding ways in which, in the preliminary textual editing, where we are inclined to do things differently. We see what the graphic sign is, but we think that an abbreviation ought to be expanded differently, or we think that the graphic sign has a different implication than what people have taken it to have. This business of transliterating into a printed alphabet is a big culprit, I think. And then final critical editing is another area where we're discovering new knowledge. So what order did I tell you I was going to do the other two programs in?
Web first and Photoshop.
Thank you. This would be stupid if all I was going to show you is that we have a website. I wanted to just show you a couple of things in our publication. The transcription policy, which we published earlier this year, gives in graphic form and also in precise paleographic description, descriptions by Dr. Olson. On the left-hand side is an image of how this particular glyph shows in the manuscript. Then we have how we transcribe it in XML. So it will either be a regular letter or will be one of these sequences that starts with an ampersand and ends with a semicolon. And those ampersand semicolon things are called entities, and you can use them in XML to stand for anything. And you can easily search and replace them too, which is one of the reasons XML was attractive to us. We also have the particular representation that in that Peter Baker font, Junicode, we have of the thing. And then if you were to transliterate it, as most editors have done, what the transliteration would be. So you can see, for example, the fourth one down, the normal transliteration and the way that it's transcribed editions is B-O-U-R, but if you look at the actual symbol used by the scribe, it's nowhere near that in terms of its graphic form. There is kind of a B on the left-hand side, but it actually has a single L-like stroke, and then to that is joined a stroke that somehow manages to be both the right-hand side of the B and the left-hand side of an O, and then there's a little curly Q surmounting the whole thing. So the scribe has done this in no more than 3 strokes of the pen. It's nowhere near B-O-U-R. We have these descriptions of what's going on as well in graphic form. So you can see, I hope, that having a transcription like this, unique to that symbol, or this one in the Junicode, makes our transcription richer in information than if, like other editors, we just transcribe B-O-U-R. Because we know where that particular sign is used rather than what it means. I think they're always trying to get towards the printed text, and that means that they ignore the richness of the information that's in the actual manuscript. So we've published part of the Junicode transcription. This is actually Olson's cleanness half of her doctoral dissertation, the diplomatic edition. I think I still have part of that. Oh, maybe I don't. Well, let's click on this then. Is this going to be visible at all on the screen? Oh, I did have it up. Okay, sorry. So that's not really usable for you at all. So I've got too many windows operating here. Yeah, that's a blown up one. This is what the transcription looks in the typography that we're currently using. Manuscript. I've done some statistical analysis of the use of particular glyphs in the manuscript, which I published. And there's some very interesting things that show up in that statistical analysis. The scribe up to the end of cleanness, so the poems are in the manuscript order: Pearl, Cleanness, Patience, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Up to the end of cleanness, the scribe routinely writes B and O, B and E, B and A joined together. After the end of cleanness, there's only one word, but, which is spelled B-O-T for reasons to do with Middle English. There's only one word where the letter B is conjoined with other letters. What could that possibly mean? What it possibly could mean is that there was a lapse of time between when the scribe wrote the first two poems into the manuscript and when the scribe wrote the second two poems into the manuscript, and the scribe's normal way of writing things out in that particular script had changed. That's my theory. That's not the theory. I don't know whether anybody buys it or not. I published it, but there's been no it wasn't as earth-shaking as I thought it was. So I was told 45 minutes, so I should hurry on from the website. Maybe I'll just show you that we're currently kind of hiding this, but we do have the full XML version of the complete transcription of the manuscript, and it actually shows up more or less transliterated the way people normally do it. But if you look at the source code for it, you can see what things look like in the XML. This is just for your edification. You don't have to try to read it or anything like that. So I did want to show you the photographs in Photoshop. So this is a picture of a page that I'm currently working on because I'm really intrigued by a reading on the 22nd line of this page. This is currently, you can see at the top of the picture window. This is showing to you at 8.33% of its actual size. So I'll just blow it up as a first thing to show you the resolution of these babies. This is a third of that's half of the 66.7%. That's 100%. So a pixel there of the manuscript is a pixel there of the photograph is a pixel of that projector resolution. So you can see that you can get quite close into things. In the Golan's facsimile, the thing that my cursor is over right now, two diagonal lines, is usually almost invisible, and they're quite clear there. What those are and their significance is a matter of debate among scholars. But what they are is an indication of some sort of division. In Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, they are beside the start of every stanza. In Pearl, they are beside the start of every stanza. In the other two poems, they are every 4 lines. And so scholars debate whether the lines, which are totally unrhymed, they're alliterative long lines and they don't have any metrical relation to one another, whether they form quatrains or not is a big debate. These diagonal lines are not, as I say, not very visible. They may have been intended as they originally were in manuscripts as what's called signe d'attente. They were signs waiting for something. What they were waiting for is a paragraph marker to be written in red or blue ink in that place. And either there was never money enough to do that with this manuscript, because we would have to pay somebody to do that, or by this point they're just being used as punctuation or formatting in their own right. So I've cut out a little bit of this page that has a bit of the manuscript that I'm currently working on. Jackie Carter found this place for me when examining the transcription, and it's a line where, try to get it in the middle here, the part I'm interested in. This page is quite water damaged, I think. There's a lot of blotting, like in the case of this letter here, which is a letter I. And the traditional transcription for this part is I, A, M, H, O, L, Y. So all the editions have that. But it's not looking that way to me. And Jackie was the first person who pointed out how badly it matched. The real difficulty with that way of reading it is taking these three strokes here as an M. So there's a clear minim there. There's a pretty clear minim there. And then there's a stroke that is spaced quite differently. It's much closer, and it starts below the top of the minim line. So I'm currently inclining to the view that what we have here is I, A, N, D, Y, L, Y. And I'm just going to show you a couple of the things that you can do just in Photoshop with the standard tools to look at this kind of color image to see if you can get more clarity over that kind of question. What are the actual letters? So Photoshop has this Layers, Channels, Paths menu, and Channels is quite useful. It divides the image up into the red pixels, the green pixels, and the blue pixels out of which the image is constituted. So you can take out all the red pixels and you can take out all the blue pixels, and you get an image that has only the green pixels, for example. Now, different channels work better with different kinds of problem. Usually the green channel shows more clarity than either the color photograph or any other combination. But you can try combinations. They're kind of garish to look at, but they are certainly possible things to look at. The other kind of thing, I was showing all of this to Stephanie. When was that? 2 days ago, yeah. Who's about to start working on those 500 lines of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in this way. The other kinds of things that you can do under filter, there are sharpening tools, so you can sharpen the edges of the image. So unsharp mask. If you apply unsharp mask, it lets you look at what you're doing as you apply a computer algorithm that finds the edges of things and makes those edges sharper. So you can play with these slide bars until you find what you think is the clearest view of the image. So those are a couple of things that I've been playing around with on this little area. You can also do adjustments to the image. One thing that my colleague Dr. Olson is very fond of is applying this invert thing, which turns dark colors into light colors into dark colors. And I sent her an email last week asking her about this word, and had a meeting with her later, and she shows up with this particular word on her iPhone and inverted, and said, "Yes, see, I'm not more convinced by the inversion than I am by looking at it in the manuscript," but she definitely was. there are also adjustments that you can do of things like contrast. And this is probably the last one that I have time for. There's one more, but I won't be able to show it. So you can just increase the contrast of the image, and to me that shows me something about what's going on here. If you look at these, the A here in the beginning of what was supposed to be an N, they're quite light in color, but this right-hand stroke of what I'm thinking is a D and the left-hand stroke are darker, and there's a bit of more darkness on what I think is the tail of the Y. So it looks like, just by doing these manipulations, it looks like there's been some overwriting or some playing, additional penmanship on this particular place in the manuscript. That's probably all I have got time for under the stated time. Somebody told me 45 minutes, the stated legal time of this presentation. So I'll stop right there.